Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. I appreciate you being with me so very, very much. You know what? I've just got to say this. I am hearing from an increasing number of people, you, that I've never heard from before in my life. And you tell me, you know, Don, I've been watching your videos for a couple of years now. This is the very first time I've reached out. But I got a couple of questions, and that's wonderful. Or I just want you to know, as just recently happened, one individual said, I just want to apologize to you for attacking you in the past. I've now come to believe that you're correct. Or I've been watching you for years now, and I didn't believe it first. But the more I listen, the more I study, the more I compare what you say with scriptures, the more I'm convinced that what you're saying is true. And I have to share this with you. My subscriber list here on YouTube. Now look, I know it's not in the millions. I know it's not in the hundreds of thousands. I know it's not in the tens of thousands. But you know what? The other day, the last I looked, and I'll be really honest, I don't just check that every day. I really don't. But I happened to be on my YouTube page the other day, and I looked up and happened to notice, and it said I have 4,900 subscribers plus. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Hey, let's do this. Reach out to your friends and your neighbors. Get them to subscribe. It would be absolutely fantastic if I could bump that up over 5,000 subscribers. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. I think that would be a major milestone for the movement. Oh, by the way, it's kind of interesting that a lot of the people that constantly attack me on YouTube and say I'm a false teacher, I'm a heretic, and I'm this and I'm that, I go to their YouTube videos and they've got 25 subscribers. Yeah. Oh, well, just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so we're looking at what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 34. In response to the apostles' question, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And he said in verse 34, this generation, that's his generation, this generation will by no means pass away. He used a double negative, by the way. Will by no means pass until all of these things are fulfilled. Now, I've shared with you how the futurists redefined the term, this generation. I shared with you yesterday how the futurists have to absolutely ignore or absolutely abuse audience relevance. They grant it on the one hand, then they take it away on the other hand. That's horrible hermeneutic. Well, today I want to share with you what I think is it's something absolutely incredible. In Luke chapter 21 and verse 8. Now, it ought to be pointed out here that the apostles in Luke 21, Luke does not record them asking about the coming of the Lord and the end of the age. And yet, Luke records everything, virtually, that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, where the coming of the Lord and the end of the age is included in the questions. Now, we've either got a problem here, i.e. Luke, for some reason he just left out those questions. No. Luke is not writing to a purely Jewish audience who understood the apocalyptic language like Matthew's audience. I could go on and on about that, but in Luke chapter 21, Jesus predicted the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Do you not see all of these things? Do you not see all of these buildings? The time is coming in which not one stone will be left standing on top of another. And the apostles asked, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign when these things come to pass? Will come to pass. Look, they're asking the identical questions as in Matthew 24. But I got to hurry here because I want to get down here. So Jesus begins answering their question about when and the signs. And in Luke chapter 21 and verse 8, Jesus said, many will come in my name saying, I am he, and the time has drawn near. Do not go after them. Now, I've got to tell you, when I read that for the very first time, I was like, say what? Jesus is looking at a time before the fall of Jerusalem, because that's, after all, that's what's being asked about. The fall of Jerusalem, which the apostles connect in their mind, in their questions, to the coming of the Lord and the end of the age. And Jesus says, well, you know what? There are going to be a bunch of false teachers come saying, I am he, I am the Messiah. And they're going to say, the end has drawn near. Do not go after them. In other words, don't believe them. Do you catch the power? Do you catch the power of what Jesus is saying here? Jesus was saying, premature declarations of the nearness of the end were not to be believed or made. Let me say that one more time. Premature declarations of the nearness of the end were not to be believed or made. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We are told that the apostles of Jesus Christ himself made, 2,000 years ago, premature declarations of the nearness of the end. Well, according to Luke 21 and verse 8, we're not even supposed to believe them then. Oh, but wait. Do you remember in Matthew 24, the disciples asked for a sign, signs of the coming of the Lord and the end of the age? Do you remember what Jesus said in Matthew 24, 32 and 32? And now, learn a parable of the fig tree. When it puts forth its leaves and they turn green, then you know that summer is nigh, near, even at the door. So likewise you, actually I transposed that part of it. So likewise you, when you see these things. What things? The signs of the end. When you see these things come to pass, then know that he, the coming of the Lord, the end of the age, is nigh, even at the door. Okay. So Jesus condemned premature declarations of the nearness of the end. Oh, by the way, Hymenaeus and Philetus actually said the end had already come during that period of time. Had already come. Not was near, but it had already come. Those at Thessalonica said, the day of the Lord has already come. Yeah, see, there were some really mistaken concepts early on. Well, now watch this. Jesus said, when you see these things. He didn't say when they see these things. He did not say when some future generation sees these things. He said when you see these things. Now remember, he said when you see the abomination of desolation. So he's telling his living, breathing apostles, they are going to see the signs. And when they see the signs, they can declare that the coming of the Lord was near. Oh, this is where it just gets so good. Well, we're told, but of that day of an hour knows no man, no, not the angels, but the Father only. So, since Jesus couldn't know the day or the hour, the apostles never could. Well, then evidently that meant that after sending of the Holy Spirit from the Father, who knew the day and the hour, the apostles still couldn't know anything. But I want to call your attention to 1 Peter chapter 4. Now remember, Jesus told Peter on the Mount of Olives, when you see these things come to pass, you will know that it is near, even at the door. But do not believe anyone who says the time has drawn near before you see the signs. Before you know, through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit sent from the Father who knew the day and the hour. Do not declare the end is near. And yet Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 7 that Jesus Christ was, when he wrote, ready, from the Greek word hitoimos. Hitoimos has two elements to it: morally prepared, temporally imminent. Christ was 2,000 years ago stated by Peter, who had the Holy Spirit sent from the Father, who knew the day and the hour, ready at that time to judge the living and the dead. Oh, but wait, in verse 7, Peter says, oh, I tell you, you just really got to catch this. The end of all things has drawn near. Now, what would the false teacher say in Luke 21:28, or Luke 21 and 8? The time. What time? The appointed time. We'll have more on that momentarily. And I got to hurry here. Has drawn near. Jesus said, don't believe anyone who says that prematurely. Yet here's Peter writing later in that very same identical generation, and he says, the end, totelos. It's what the apostles asked about. They asked about the consummation of the age. They ask about the end of the age. That's why it's translated end of the age. And remember, Jesus said, don't believe anyone who makes premature declarations that the time had arrived. Here is Peter writing in that same generation and said, the end has drawn near. So let me ask you a question. Was Peter a false teacher? Was Peter one of the very people that Jesus warned about, who falsely said that the time had drawn near? Hey, look, Peter's speaking by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit sent by the Father who knew the day and the hour, right? That means it was the Father, through the Spirit, revealing to Peter that the end had drawn near. So that means if Peter wasn't right, he was one of the false teachers. But that means if Peter's right, that the end was going to come in that generation, just exactly like Matthew 24:34 said it would. And yeah, we got more. So I'll see you on the flip side.